Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Surabhyaya Namaha.
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 Mukam karoti vachalam pangam lankayate girim yatripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam yatripa tamaham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Saturday class, which is reading from Chaitanya Caritamrta. And we continue from Adi Lila. Chapter 1. We'll begin with text 104. Edvi shloke koila mangala bandana tritiya sloke ra artha shana sarvajana. I have invoked the benediction of the Lords with these two verses. And now, please hear attentively the purport of the third. Vaktavya bahulya granta vistare radare vistare navarni sarartha kahi alpakshare. I purposely avoid extensive description for fear of increasing the bulk of this book. I shall describe the essence as concisely as possible. So this is the author, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who is explaining that he will try to be as concise as possible. As we know, this story is related how after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, naturally the devotees wanted to have or to keep memories of the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and one of the very respectful personalities, Vaishnavas, who was residing in Vrindavan was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And although he was very, very old at that time, I believe past his 90s, he could barely function when the body gets very old. but he was the most senior Vaishnava and the devotees had requested him. So this he reminds us at different times in this narration that I can hardly see, I can hardly write. I don't know how this is happening, but I'm just trying to carry on and describe these pastimes of the Lord as I have seen and as I have heard from great devotees, great Vaishnavas who had the personal association with the Lord. Mitam cha saram cha vacho hi vatmitam. Translation. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Yeah, devotees sometimes quote this. Essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. Text number 107. Shunile kandibe chitera Agnanadi dosha Krishne gadha Prema habe paibe santosha. Simply hearing submissively will free one's heart from all the faults of ignorance, and thus one will achieve deep love for Krishna. This is the path of peace. Actually, we are nearing means we are at the last two verses of this first chapter, which I'll just read now. Sri Caitanya Nityananda Advaita Mahatva Tara Bhakta Bhakti Nama Prema Rasa Tattva Minna Bhinna Dutiyachi Kariya Vicharam Shunile Janive Sab Vastu Tattva Saram. Translation. If one patiently hears about the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Prabhu, and their devotees, devotional activities, names, fame, and the mellows of their transcendental loving exchanges, one will learn the essential of the absolute, or the essence. One will learn the essence of the absolute truth. Therefore, I have described these in Caritamrta with logic and discrimination. Actually, there's a last verse here, 110. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Jara Asham Caitanya Charitamrta Kahe Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunatha, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Adi Lila, first chapter describing the spiritual masters. So Krishnadas Kaviraj spends one entire chapter, 110 verses, explaining and describing different types of spiritual masters and the importance of spiritual masters. Actually, The same is nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, which is one of the 4 essential books for all Vaishnavas. So there, in the first 10 of the 64 items for devotional service, the emphasis is given on the different types and the importance of spiritual masters. So it's quite logical that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami would be beginning in this way as well. Now we go to chapter 2 of the Adi Lila. And I'll just read a short summary here before we begin the actual text. This chapter explains that Lord Caitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. Therefore, the Brahman effulgence is the bodily luster of Lord Caitanya, and the localized supersoul situated in the heart of every living entity is his partial representation. The Purusha avatars are also explained in this connection. Mahavishnu is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, but as confirmed in the authoritative scriptures, Lord Krishna is the ultimate fountainhead, the source of numerous plenary expansions, including Narayana, who is generally accepted by Mayavadi philosophers to be the absolute truth. The Lord's manifestation of Prabhava and Vaibhava expansions, as well as partial incarnations and incarnations with delegated powers, are also explained. So different types of incarnations will be explained in this chapter. And Lord Krishna's ages of boyhood and youth are discussed, and it is explained that his age at the beginning of youth is his eternal form. The spiritual sky contains innumerable spiritual planets, the Vaikunthas, which are manifestations of the Supreme Lord's internal energy. Innumerable material universes are similarly exhibited by his external energy, and the living entities are manifested by his marginal energy. Because Lord Krishna Caitanya is not different from Lord Krishna. He is the cause of all causes. Therefore, there is no cause beyond him. He is eternal, and his form is spiritual. Lord Caitanya is directly the Supreme Lord Krishna, as the evidence of authoritative scriptures proves. This chapter stresses that a devotee must have knowledge of Krishna's personal form, his 3 principal energies, his pastimes, and the relationship of the living entities with him in order to advance in Krishna consciousness. So these are the various topics that will be covered in this chapter. We'll begin with text number 1. Shri Caitanya Prabhum Bande Baloki Yad Anugrahat Tarenna Nana Mata Graha Vyaptam Siddhanta Sagaram. Translation and purport. I offer my obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusive truth, which is full of the crocodiles of various theories. Very poetically explained. Report. By the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even an inexperienced boy with no educational culture can be saved from the ocean of nescience, which is full of various types of philosophical doctrines that are like dangerous aquatic animals, like crocodiles. The philosophy of the Buddha, the argumentative presentations of the Jnanis, the yoga systems of Patanjali and Gautama, and the systems of philosophers like Kanada, Kapila, and Dattatreya are dangerous creatures in the ocean of nescience. By the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can have real understanding of the essence of knowledge by avoiding these sectarian views and accepting the lotus feet of Krishna as the ultimate goal of life. Let us all worship Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his gracious mercy to the conditioned souls. So in the beginning of the purport, the Srila Prabhupada makes the point that even someone who doesn't go to school, someone with no educational culture, by hearing the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, can be successful and can be saved from the various misleading doctrines and philosophies in the world. So the whole topic of education is especially very much discussed nowadays with the government of India having come out with a new, 57-page, how many pages? 57-page report, big report, new educational policies for the 21st century. Ki jai. So, what we forget or don't know, most people don't know, unfortunately, and sometimes devotees who do know tend to forget that the eternal principles of education are given by our acharyas and have been available since time immemorial through the Vedic literatures, Shastra, Veda. Veda means knowledge, and therefore whatever we need to know, whatever we have to know, whatever is knowable, both in terms of what is this material world about, in terms of what are the different sciences that are there, both material and spiritual, is contained in the Shastra. And it has been the traditional process for acharyas, for those who are learned. That is the responsibility of brahmanas actually. Brahmanas who are meant to study the Shastra, they will be the natural teachers. And therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is making the point here that even someone without any material education, generally is better not to have material education, to be able to understand and follow the knowledge and information that is given in the Shastra. This is not simply some kind of, baseless statement. First of all, it's being explained here by a great authority, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. And it can be seen or experienced as well if anyone follows this process. At the same time, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining how the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially as found in the Chaitanya Charitamrta, are the culmination of all knowledge. Because ultimately knowledge means to come to this point of understanding the goal of life, the purpose of life, and of conducting or leading our lives in such a way that we become successful in becoming freed and liberated from the main and real problems of life, which are the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. I think I related this small anecdote when I first joined. When you first join, obviously, unless one is already coming from a Vaishnava background or Vedic background, one does not know even the basics that are there in the Bhagavad Gita. So one of my godbrothers, this was before I got initiated, in the temple where I had joined in Ottawa, his mother, he was actually from the other side of Canada. Canada is a big country, one of the largest countries, so it's like, over 8,000 kilometers, One of our sannyasis, Canadian, has walked it 3 times already. Walking. Takes, maybe 6 months to walk. Did you ever walk 8,000 kilometers and back? Yeah, that's 16,000. That's 16,000 times 3. Who's good at mathematics? 48. 48,000. So his mother was calling that you are away from home for so long, why don't you come? And in the telephone conversation, somehow I was close by, I happened to hear, and he was mentioning to his mother, but I'm here in Eastern Canada, and you're there in Western Canada, and the same situation is there for both of us, birth, death, old age, and disease. So whether I'm here or there, there's no big difference. I'm not sure if his mother could capture that or appreciate that. Devotees in the early days were very bold in preaching to anybody and everybody, including mommy and daddy. Not always to the liking of people. Anyways, but Prabhupada explains actually how this book, series of books actually, Adi Lila, Madhya Lila, Antya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrta are the, we already glorify Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is presenting the summum bonum. It is described as the Amala Purana, spotless Purana, which it is, of course. Even higher than this Srimad Bhagavatam is actually the Chaitanya Charitamrta, which is containing, it is like the author has collected the different treasures in the forms of jewels, in the forms of various instructions given from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Srimad Bhagavatam and other literatures. So this is being explained here a little bit how it surpasses all kinds of philosophies and theories that various personalities, some of which have been mentioned here by the author, have been presented in the land of Dharma here in India. Let us go to text number 2, which has, some of these texts have very long purports. Let's see here. Yes. Text number 2, which is actually I will not read the text itself because it's quite long. I'll go immediately to the translation. O my merciful Lord Chaitanya, may the nectarian Ganges waters of your transcendental activities flow on the surface of my desert-like tongue. Can you translate that? Maybe difficult to translate in such a poetic way. My desert-like tongue. Nice expression. Beautifying these waters are the lotus flowers of singing, dancing, and loud chanting of Krishna's holy name, which are the pleasure abodes of unalloyed devotees. These devotees are compared to swans, ducks, and bees. Swan, ducks, and bees. The rivers flowing produces a melodious sound that gladdens their ears. Purport. Our tongues are always engaged in vibrating useless sounds that do not help us realize transcendental peace. That is, of course, common for the non-devotees, and sometimes for the devotees also. We slip back into what is called Granya Kotha. The tongue is compared to a desert because a desert needs a constant supply of refreshing water to make it fertile and fruitful. Water is the substance most needed in the desert. The transient pleasure derived from mundane topics of art, culture, politics, sociology, dry philosophy, poetry, and so on, is compared to a mere drop of water, because although such topics have a qualitative feature of transcendental pleasure, they are saturated with the modes of material nature. So, yeah, all of these different topics, whether it is art, culture, and in modern day society, of course, like they spend so much money in big theaters, big places, structures where people come for entertainment, so-called entertainment. But because it is disconnected, Papa is making a nice point here actually, that such topics have a qualitative feature of transcendental pleasure. These are all important when, but only when they are connected with transcendence or with Krishna. Therefore, neither collectively nor individually can they satisfy the vast requirements of the desert-like tongues. Despite crying in various conferences, therefore the desert-like tongue continues to be parched. Parched means dry. There are some people, I've had personal experience in Indonesia, who are conference lovers. All kinds of lovers in the material world. You know what a conference lover is? It's someone who somehow has a degree and has a little bit of ability to make presentations to a large audience. And he's always looking for opportunities to go to a conference. And whenever he gets an invitation, his hair stand on end. Finally, people are recognizing me. And I had that experience, especially in Indonesia, because the small city where I was staying is called Jakarta. It's full of universities and professors. And professors, that's common in all universities, they just love to attend conferences. So Prabhupada is making the point here that actually people spend so much money, spend so much time, and spend their whole lives, actually. Most people who are so-called educated, who are having some kind of knowledge that they want to share. And of course, nowadays the whole internet is full of such conferences or talks and whatnot. And it's like some people, they cannot live without a microphone. Microphone is like makes their day. Give me a microphone and I'll, people, we see that in politicians also. They just, this is how they get their pleasure, so to speak. So this is being condemned, of course, here. Despite crying in various conferences, therefore the desert-like tongue continues to be parched. For this reason, people from all parts of the world must call for the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who are compared to swans swimming around the beautiful lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or bees humming around around his lotus feet in transcendental pleasure, searching for honey. The dryness of material happiness cannot be moistened by so-called philosophers who cry for Brahman, liberation, and similar dry speculative objects. The urge of the soul proper is different. The soul can be solaced only by the mercy of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and his many bona fide servants who never leave the lotus feet of the Lord to become imitation Mahaprabhus, but all cling to his lotus feet like bees that never leave the honey-soaked lotus flower. So the last paragraph of this report, Lord Chaitanya's movement of Krishna consciousness is full of dancing and singing about the pastimes of Lord Krishna. It is compared herein to the pure waters of the Ganges, which are full of lotus flowers. The enjoyers of these lotus flowers are the pure devotees, who are like bees and swans. They chant like the flowing of the Ganges, the river of the celestial kingdom. The author desires such sweetly flowing waters to cover his tongue. He humbly compares himself to materialistic persons who always engage in dry talk for which they derive no satisfaction. Dry. If they were to use their dry tongues to chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as exemplified by Lord Chaitanya, they would taste sweet nectar and enjoy life. So we are ending here for today. Questions? Comments? Oh. Yes, from behind the curtain. Yes.
It mentioned in the first chapter that
It is mentioned?
it's mentioned in the first chapter.
In the first chapter, yeah.
The importance of Guru's mercy, especially in the context of how important the Shiksha Gurus, having Shiksha Gurus,
Yes.
along with Diksha Gurus,
Yes.
and their understanding, not misunderstanding the relationship of
Okay, the point being made by our local pundit is in reference to the first chapter that we just finished this morning, the importance of understanding about not only Diksha Guru but also Shiksha Guru. This is also nicely explained in other sections as well by our acharyas, how one should not differentiate actually between Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru, and that especially in a society that we have in ISKCON, where there is opportunity, possibility to have many Shiksha Gurus, then this is very helpful and very beneficial for our spiritual advancement. So this is being pointed out, which is, of course, something very important. Prabhupada established ISKCON as a large family where traditionally that was not, it was present, of course. People had both Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru. So this is an important aspect that we should take full advantage of both types of spiritual masters. Okay. Jai Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta ki Jai Sri Prabhupada ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hare Krishna.